Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode. We're, as always, so excited to have you here. So glad to be back in the kitchen, one of my favorite places. And today I'm going to be sharing one of my favorite recipes with you, a family recipe, which was my mother's green chili chicken enchiladas. So delicious. Can't wait to share that with you. But before we go on, I wanted to just ask everybody, if you're not already following us on Instagram, if you could jump over and start following us there, that would be great. Here on YouTube, we are the Consummate Host, but on Instagram, we are at the Wayne Hilton. So if you could just take a moment, we share a lot of our reels and shorter video content over on Instagram, but in addition to all that, I love to share just kind of some of the personal things I have going on, some of the things that I'm committed to and up to, and just a little bit deeper dive as to what Wayne Hilton, the Consummate Host, is up to. So if you could just take a moment, jump over to Instagram and start following there, that would be awesome. So for those of you that do follow us on Instagram, I was in New York about 3 weeks ago with my bestie travel friend, Alex. There's Alex and I. We did another of what we call a long weekend trip to New York. And one of the absolute high points for both of us was having lunch with legendary fashion designer Nicole Miller. It was such an honor. Nicole and I have followed each other for a bit on social media, but we had never actually met in person. And so it was just awesome to have the opportunity to sit down with her. I was super nervous going to lunch, but what was amazing? She put the table at ease the second we sat down. She suggested that we go to Balthazar, which of course is an iconic restaurant in New York. So that was an incredible experience. Also, lunching with a legend is pretty fabulous because the second we were all seated, champagne showed up to the table. So that was incredible as well. Nicole brought her longtime casting director, John James, with her. It was really a pleasure getting to know him. He's not only a casting director, but he's an artist. He's a dog dad with amazing golden retrievers. We got to see lots of pictures of that. But anyway, it was just a great experience. So there was something that happened 3 times on that trip that I will never forget. And this lunch that I'm telling you about with Nicole was the 3rd time it happened. So as I said, I had reached out on social media and suggested that we have this lunch together. So of course, in my mind, I'm inviting her. So of course, in my mind, the entire time, I was thinking I'll pick up the tab, no big deal. So when we were getting ready to wrap up that lunch, the check comes. Nicole takes the check and she says, "My town, my treat." That happened 3 times, once with cocktails, once with dinner, and then with this lunch, all on the same trip. So I am now adapting my town, my treat as part of my hosting mantra. So for those of you that want to come visit the Consummate Host in El Paso, you can expect to be treated to something for sure. So getting back to our episode now, I wanted to send both Nicole and John a thoughtful memento of my appreciation for their time, for having this lunch with us. And of course, I wanted it to be something special, something significant to me, and also something relevant to the area that I live in. I know that Nicole is a foodie, so I was thinking, I want to send them something that might be like food related. So I decided to send them some green chili and some green chili salsa. And let me tell you why this is super special to me. This particular brand, which is what I'm gonna use for our enchiladas today, this is Young Guns green chili. Young Guns, the brand Young Guns, was founded by my cousin. As you all know, having followed me, I'm originally from Las Cruces, New Mexico. So my cousin, Chris Franzoy, is originally from the Hatch Valley region. And of course, I'm sure you recognize Hatch Valley, famous for green chili. So that's where Chris is from. He now lives in Las Cruces, which is my hometown, but he founded Young Guns in 1984. So this particular brand is very near and dear to my heart. So Nicole and John should have received their green chili by the time this episode comes out, so I wanted to share some ideas or an idea on what they might decide to do with their chili. So let's get started. So as I mentioned, this recipe is near and dear to my heart because this was a style of enchilada that my mom would make all the time when I was growing up. As I've mentioned before, I'm from Las Cruces, New Mexico. We're here in El Paso. We're right near the border, so we have a lot of Hispanic influence in this area. But then also, growing up in southern New Mexico, there was a lot of New Mexico influence. So I kind of feel like this particular recipe is a little bit like kind of like a combination of both Latino and New Mexican. So it's casserole style. One of the things I love about something like a casserole style anything is that you can prepare it ahead of time. So this is one of those dishes where you can do all the heavy lifting long before guests arrive, and then at the very end, all you have to do is pop it in the oven and you are good to go. So what are we gonna need for our enchiladas? We are going to need corn tortillas. So we have corn tortillas here. We're going to need chicken. Let me tell you what I like to do. This is kind of my adaptation. My mom would boil chicken breast and shred it. I love to take a rotisserie chicken. So just like a grocery store rotisserie chicken, take all the meat off of it, white meat and dark meat. And I also like to use the skin. So remember, the skin doesn't shred quite as well as the meat itself. So once you get all that meat off the chicken, I usually kind of keep the skin to the side and then chop it up really fine. We want to make sure that it's very, very fine, but then I mix it in because having that skin mixed in gives it that just kind of juiciness and makes it even more tender when we do the enchiladas. So that's how I do the chicken. We're gonna need cheese. I like to use a blend. So I'm using a 3-cheese blend that's like cheddar, Monterey Jack, and asadero, a very typical kind of Latin blend. You'll see those in the stores. So I like to use a combination of green chili and green chili tomatillo salsa. So we're gonna mix these half and half for this particular kind of sauce that we use for this recipe. A little bit of salt when we're finishing the tortillas, and then we'll use onion and shredded lettuce as a garnish. So let's get started. Okay. For today's purposes, I'm going to use a 9x9 baking pan, okay? So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna create 4 layers. We're gonna do tortilla, sauce, chicken, and cheese. Those are our 4 layers. I have portioned things today relative to this size of pan. Once you have an understanding of how this goes together, this is one of those recipes you don't need to be worried about, you know, how many cups or how many tablespoons or anything like that. Once you get the idea of how the enchiladas go together, this is great for a dinner for 4, but if you're doing a party of 20, you can jump up to, you know, a big sheet cake pan and do your enchiladas in those. The only thing that might change just a little bit is your baking time, but the process is exactly the same. So you can, you know, easily just multiply the quantities that I'm giving you today, but it's not rocket science. So don't be afraid to try and experiment. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna blend together our green chili and our salsa. So let's do that. So like I said, I'm gonna mix this half and half. And the reason I do that, there's actually a couple of reasons I do this. So I love the flavor of this tomatillo salsa. I love the flavor of tomatillos. They kind of have a little bit of a roasted quality to them. So I love the salsa for flavor. But then the green chili itself, it's a little bit chunkier, so we get a little bit more texture in the sauce that we're making. So we're gonna go half and half. And for this amount, we're gonna need about 2 cups total. So we'll do a cup of each of these. All right, so we'll start with our cup here of our salsa. And then we'll add our cup of green chili, get our spoon here. All right, so that gives us our 2 cups of our sauce that we're gonna use to make the enchiladas. And then we've got about 2 cups of our shredded cheese. We've got about 2 cups of our shredded chicken, and we have about 6 tortillas. So the next thing we're gonna do before we start putting our enchiladas together is we're going to fry our tortillas very lightly. So as I was saying, we're going to do a very light frying of the tortillas, but we're not frying them to a crisp. Really, all we're doing is just giving them like a slight cook in the oil. And then also the tortillas absorb a little bit of the oil. So when we sprinkle that salt on, it kind of integrates into the tortilla. And then also when we take the tortillas and create the enchilada casserole, the fact that those tortillas have a little bit of oil on them kind of enhances the texture and the flavor of the casserole itself. So let's do this. So the heat on the skillet is between medium and medium high. And generally when I do this, I leave them on each side of the tortilla for about 15 seconds. All right, that's about enough. We just let that oil run off because they'll hold enough of the oil on them. It's funny, I remember when my mom used to do this, of course, this was way back in the day when people actually got newspapers. She would always use a newspaper to put the tortillas on when she was frying them like this. But like, what's a newspaper, right? So I just did a little piece of parchment paper and some paper towel. Once your tortillas are done, then just go ahead and give it a light, very light sprinkling with salt. We've already got some salt in the salsa, so we don't want to over salt, but it's always nice to get a little bit more salt on the tortilla. And we're going to go ahead and do that again, and then we'll start putting all this together. All right, we've got our tortillas fried and lightly salted, and here's our other primary ingredients. So just a quick recap. This is our sauce that's half green chili tomatillo salsa and half green chili. This is our shredded rotisserie chicken, dark meat, light meat, and skin. And this is our shredded cheese, which is the Monterey Jack, cheddar, and asadero. So let's put all this together. We start with our pan. Layer number 1 is going to be tortilla. So I always tear these up into small pieces, and you want to just layer them onto the bottom of the pan, making sure they all overlap. So that's the first thing we do. All right, so once we have that first tortilla layer done, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our sauce and we're just gonna put a nice layer of that right on top of those tortillas. All right, now that we've got our sauce in, we're gonna go ahead and layer in our shredded chicken. And then once we've got our chicken in, our final layer is our cheese. And now guess what? We're gonna repeat the exact same thing. Okay, so as I mentioned, the ingredients that I gave you were kind of scaled to the size of pan that I'm baking in, and this was a 9x9. And we're going to bake this at 375 for 35 minutes. And we're gonna start by covering it with foil. And then at about 20 minutes, we're gonna remove the foil so that that top layer of cheese can get nice and melted. But the reason we do the foil is it makes sure that interior of the casserole gets cooked. Also, as I mentioned, scale this. You know, once you've figured out your sauce, your quantities on chicken, you can do a large pan if you're doing it for a large group. And really, if the thickness of the pan stays the same, you don't even have to adjust the temperature and the time. What happens is, as you get to bigger pans, they tend to get deeper. So maybe you've got 3 layers instead of 2 layers. So if that's the case, just keep an eye on it. You know, maybe add 5 more minutes, keep that foil on just a little bit longer to make sure that interior gets cooked. But it's always nice to take that foil off near the end so that we can get that top layer nice and melted. Sometimes even the edges get crispy, which is even better. All right, let's put this in the oven. All right, I love to see this because one of my favorite parts is that delicious crispy edge all the way around. So this is gonna be so yummy. Let's serve ourselves a piece. And so now we've got our lettuce and our onion for a little bit of garnish. And let's take a bite. So delicious. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this has been, as always, an inspiration for you. Don't forget to please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, we're so glad you were here today, and we'll see you for our next episode. Thank you.